Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Rosenzweig. I'm the Dean of the Food Business School at the Culinary Institute of America. I'm sitting here in beautiful Northern California on a sunny and warm summer day. Happy to be here with you and my two guests, Sangita Forth and Sophie Egan, who will be joining me briefly to talk to you about today's theme on mission-driven brand building. And the reason why this topic is so timely and relevant is that, as we've seen detailed in a Fortune magazine article last summer called "The War on Big Food," you probably would have seen that there are actually billions of dollars in sales that are being stolen, if you will, or captured from old incumbent established brands, many of them kind of existing in the center of the store, giving really up their market share to early stage mission driven challenger brands that are coming on fast. Now, the response that we're getting from that those big companies are giving is in many cases to acquire those smaller companies, and in some cases at very robust multiples of sales. We've seen some unprecedented valuations in terms of consumer products exits recently, probably most notably Crave Jerky, which was acquired by Hershey's about a year ago. We've had John Sebastiani, the founder of that company, as a guest lecturer in several of our courses. But he demonstrated most recently kind of fulfilling a whole pattern of small companies getting bought by big companies, that big companies are prepared to pay exponentially for the goodwill and the loyalty that is developed between a company and its customers. And today we're going to be talking more about that. And really, this FoodBiz Plus session is also an opportunity to introduce you to one of our faculty members, Sangita Forth, who in her own right is a very talented and experienced marketing professional who's driven the growth of mission-driven brands. Probably most notably, the one that you've heard of is Plum Organics. And Plum is another example of a fast growth, early stage startup that grew remarkably quickly, introducing organic baby food to the market in really innovative and convenient form factors or packaging. And Sangita had a lot to do with the design and expression of the company's values through its brand. So when I was thinking about who might be the best person to teach a course at Food Business School on this very timely topic, Sangita was really the top of my list, and I'm really proud that she's going to be presenting her course beginning in the middle of next month. So in this conversation, we're going to be, checking in and to what people will learn in Sangita's course and what takeaways they might think about from today's conversation that'll be applicable in their own marketing strategy and plans. And our other guest is Sophie Egan, who is someone who I'm a big fan of. And Sophie is the program director of nutrition education at the Culinary Institute of America and plays an integral role in producing programs and content that help the food industry, and in particular the food service sector of the food industry, develop healthier and sustainable practices. And Sophie just published this fabulous book called Devoured, From Chicken Wings to Kale Smoothies, How What We Eat Defines Who We Are. I love this book. I'm a big fan of it. I'm going to show you the cover multiple times this afternoon to encourage you to go out and get it. But Sophie's going to come on in a minute too and share with you some of her insights. And the reason I wanted to combine Sangita and Sophie to get together on this conversation, and by the way, this is the first time we've ever had two guests and me talking, so we'll see how it goes on Adobe Connect. I really wanted Sophie to share with you some of the insights that she's gleaned in her research about where the consumer market is going. Because as you'll learn in the Mission Driven Branding course, really understanding how to connect with the perceptions and values of food consumers is critical to the decisions you make as a mission-driven brand builder. So our goal here at Food Business School is really to empower and equip entrepreneurs to really lead exciting innovations that are going to transform the business of food. And we like to support people who are taking on really important challenges, not just creating another product, but really creating change in the whole food system. And integral to our curriculum design and really our pedagogy here at FBS is a commitment to systems thinking, to ethical leadership, to environmental responsibility, to health and well-being. We really feel that to be an innovator in food at this time, in this era, that an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, anyone leading a food initiative really needs to have a mindset that has a deep empathetic understanding of all of the stakeholders' interests, needs, and preferences and biases. So I think with that, what I'd like to do is just remind you again that Sangita is going to be teaching her course from September 12th through October 14th. It takes place online in a very exciting and innovative environment that we deliver on a platform called NovoEd. It allows you to have a lot of interaction with both the instructor, but also your teammates and your cohort mates. And historically, we've had about 50 people in each class from all over the world, which makes it very exciting. And there are assignments that you do, and you get to post the assignments to your profile on the platform. And part of your engagement is to give feedback on those assignments. And you really learn while doing. It's not a lot of listening to a person. It's sort of taking prompts and projects and working at your with your full sort of entrepreneurial zeal and commitment to produce things and develop the experience and pattern recognition and comfort, confidence, familiarity that you can either apply right now in your own business or in the future when you're ready. So again, this is a very timely course. At the end of this session, we're going to offer you a discount code for participating with us here today that you can use to register. And I also see on our slide here that if you register before August 29th, there's a considerable tuition kind of benefit for your involvement. So if you are ready to go after this session, please feel free to sign up right away. Okay, so with that, I'd like to invite Sangita and Sophie to join me on our Adobe Connect live environment. Here we go. There's Sophie, there's Sangita. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Let's see, I think you have to turn on your mic or unmute your microphone. I can't hear Sangita. Sophie, can you say something?
Yes, hi,
I can't
it's great
hear
to be here.
Sophie either. Huh. Can other people hear them? Is it just
me?
me?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Let's see. Okay, I unmuted my speaker. Okay, say something again. Say hello.
Hello.
Oh, good. I can hear
Hello.
Sophie. Oh, good. It was my connection over here. Okay, and we have no echo. This is fantastic. So,
Marvelous.
Sophie, look, I have your book right here. It's fabulous.
It's a good thing I was on mute. I was having a good chuckle. Thank you, Will. Much appreciated.
You know, Sophie, you talk about in the introduction of your book about this sort of American food psyche. And you describe the day in the life of this kind of typical, maybe they're a millennial, I don't know, but they're a person whose life sort of unsuspectingly ends up revolving around all of these kind of subconscious food choices that they're making all day long. Can you talk us through a little bit about what did you discover about this food psyche and how does it take shape, during the day.
Definitely. And so the American food psyche is kind of the umbrella term that I've used to describe the uniquely American ways of looking at food, of incorporating food into our daily lives, our relationships with food. So when I think about how the insights that I've gained through writing this book fit into mission driven branding and values-based food purchases more broadly, I really think that you use the exact right word, which is that I'm really speaking much more to the subconscious values compared to the explicit or known values. So, for instance, many of us, when we're navigating food choices today, might think about, well, I'm a person who cares about whether the waitress here gets paid sick leave, or I care about supporting local economies. That's a conscious recognition of something that you care about, and you want to put your food dollars towards something like that. In the book, in the American Food Psyche portrayal that I've aimed to share, it's really much more about those things that we sometimes don't even realize are there. So the three core values that I identified through the course of my research that really have threaded across our history as a people, as an American people, as a national culture, but are really even more pronounced today. Those three core values are work, freedom, and progress. And they shape our food choices in fascinating ways. So for instance, with work, we have always been known for our work ethic. We're known around the world for this. Productivity, it's at the heart of who we are. But today we're actually even outworking ourselves. And that leads to two very interesting relationships with food. One is we don't spend much time obtaining it. Yes, we're foodies, and many of us are thinking about it or posting about it, but actually of all the major developed countries, we spend the least amount of time preparing food and the least amount of time eating food. And that's a stunning realization. What that means is that instead of sort of designing our day around meal times, we are making food choices based on what's going to most facilitate the very busy and hectic work-focused day that most of us are accustomed to. It also means that we've brought food into the workplace in some stunning ways. So sad desk lunch is an example of something that I describe in great detail. I think all of us have probably been victim of this phenomenon.
Sad desk keyboard spilled smoothie. Is
Yes.
that part of that too?
This is the hunchback situation where you sort of feel that you're continuing to be productive, but really you're just spewing crumbs all over the place, greasing up your mouse with your grimy fingers. And it's this sense that we couldn't possibly stop and take a break to eat it. It's on to the things that truly matter in our day. And what's stunning is to realize, and this is what's one of the most, to me, most fascinating conversations that I had with consumer insights experts, people who study our eating behavior. They go into people's homes, they follow them in their cars. These are firms like the Hartman Group and the NPD Group. They found that actually their food companies that they advise, are designing foods to be more amenable to keyboard eating. So an example is popcorn, where it gets, if it's cheesy popcorn, for instance, you might get it all over your fingertips and not want to eat that snack while at your computer. Well, companies want to be eaten whenever possible, want their products to be, and so actually they're coming to these to consumer insights folks and saying, well, how can we design foods that are one-handable, not just portable, but can be eaten in one hand while you drive or do something else in the other hand, but also won't leave that residue. And that is a really startling realization that many folks are having. And that again comes back to that.
Let me take up on that. And Sangita, now when you were leading the charge of marketing at Plum, you guys really tapped into that need state around work because you realized that a lot of moms are working. They don't have time to prepare the kinds of foods that they might want to give to their babies. And then they also found that a lot of time spent with small children or young children happens to be in mobility or in motion, right? So yeah. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you thought about solving that mom's problem who is very busy and working and moving.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Plum, one of the things that we realized, and many of us were parents, myself included, that parents, don't want to compromise on the quality of food and how they're caring for their child. And, especially if you're a working parent, there's just that added guilt of trying to find healthy solutions that meet their high standards for their kids. And so one of the biggest insights that we had was, well, if we feel this, how can we design a solution that not only works for us, but for all of these parents out there who are feeling like they're making trade-offs because they don't have the time to create organic baby food from scratch. And, at that time, the only other solution was jarred baby food, which did not taste great. And that's, everyone knew that, if you had to feed your baby jarred baby food, there was a huge sacrifice because it just didn't look appealing and it didn't taste great. And so that was kind of our core premise, was how do we design something or create something that's healthy and organic that gives parents the confidence and makes them feel really good that they're feeding their kids healthy baby food that has a variety of unique ingredients. That's not just going to, kind of check the box from a nutrition perspective, but also check the box from a palate development in terms of really developing babies' palates. And so that was more from a formulation perspective. And then the form factor was really thinking about, if you're an on-the-go parent, how do we design something that fits into their active lifestyles? And so the old way of parenting is you stay at home and your life is centered around your child. All the meals are happening at home. But with the new take on parenting, parents are out and about. They're taking their kids to restaurants. They're going out. They're bringing their kids with them. And so what was the packaging solution that allowed them to feed their kids on the go, whether it was at a restaurant or at a park? And how could they also encourage their kids to self-feed? And so the idea of, a spouted pouch was great in many fronts because it delivered on the convenience, both for the parent and for the child to self-feed. But also it offered a healthier nutrition profile compared to the jars. So, from their perspective, it felt like a really good win-win on multiple fronts, both from nutrition and a convenience perspective.
So, what we're getting at is that we're talking about how insight can drive innovation. And so I think these three dimensions that Sophie mentioned with work, why don't you talk to us a little bit about freedom too, as a place for us to glean consumer insight. And then let's talk a little bit more about insight, and then I'd like to transition to how does a company organize itself from a vision and values perspective to address an opportunity and an unmet need in the marketplace. So Sophie, talk to us a little bit more. You've talked about work a little bit. Tell us about freedom.
Sure. So this was the second one that really jumped out as being a uniquely American value that affects our eating behavior. So whether we recognize it or not, and many of us sort of take it just as a given, we're very individualistic. We think of ourselves as independent as opposed to interdependent. So it's sort of always been an insult in the United States to be average. You want to be exceptional. You want to stand out from the crowd. You don't want to sort of be part of just a larger entity, a collective, and you want to be your own special, unique person. And with food, that translates to a lot of personalization, and customization is so key right now and has only increased with technology. And I can speak to that in a little bit more detail. But really what I'm referring to is that, when Burger King came out with Have It Your Way, that was kind of radical, that you could go and say, you mean I can hold the pickle? That's okay. Wow, that's huge. Today that seems like nothing, right? I mean, you have kiosks at McDonald's, you have online, mobile ordering apps that allow you to do all kinds of very tailored ways of ordering. But at the time, that was, in the 70s, that was actually a pretty big offer that Burger King was doing, because it spoke to a very uniquely American sense of, oh, I'm going to have this made for me. I want to eat when I want, how much I want, whatever I want, with or not with whomever I want. Because the second real major way that I've found that this individualistic nature and freedom affects our eating is we do a lot of alone eating. The Hartman Group, again, that consumer research, consumer insights firm, one of their biggest takeaways right now is how much people are eating alone. It's now over half of all eating occasions, or about half of all eating occasions. And this relates in part to the fact that more people are living alone. About 10 times as many 18 to 34-year-olds live by themselves as did in 1950. But it also means it's also been really leading to a lot more snacking, because it's not as much this sense that you take breaks and eat with people. You just graze throughout the day, right? I mean, grazing is kind of the new normal for a lot of people, and it also then, of course, relates back to work. But with that personalization, that desire for things to be really, made for you, it's interesting because it's in an industrialized food system where, in reality, these things are mass-produced. So it's just to give you the sense, at least, that it's made for you. Think of Starbucks, right? In your many adjective order.
One of the sections I loved in your book, Sophie, is when you talk about chefing. You have this verb that we're all chefing all the time, and this is our way of inserting our personal preferences. I mean, Meg Ryan probably did it best in When Harry Loves Sally, that great movie where she orders something with, very specific dimensions to it.
Right.
But talk to us a little bit about chefing.
Yeah, so chefing is this term. It actually comes from someone named Michael Berry, who's a Bay Area design thinker. He has a firm called Point Forward, where they consult for a lot of food companies. But that term has been used, you could think of Subway was sort of one of maybe many of our first encounters with this, where there's the assembly line format, and you're kind of pointing to things and, oh, can you add tomato to mine? And what he found is that people actually, just by making eye contact with the server making food for them, they feel it is fresher. They feel it is of better value, that they're getting more for their money. And the reason that this is so fascinating is that, again, you have to keep in mind the context that it's coinciding with us outsourcing more of the meal making, right? So this is a way of you're participating in the making of your food, even though it's happening outside of your home. And last year, when for the first time, since the Commerce Department has been tracking our behavior, we spent more money out at restaurants and bars than we did at grocery stores. And this is all, again, part of it, where assembly line formats, Chipotle is just one of countless we could think of poke bowl, or, name your cuisine.
Mixed greens, sweet greens.
Yeah, so those have facilitated an environment where chefing is now not just that's fun. That's the expectation. The other one that I'll just add is a kind of a fun example. I wanted to show this is Graze. Have any of you seen this? This is personalized snack subscription. See, it's made for Sophie, me. And I say that because this is an example to me of a product of a new type of food business that recognizes all of these food values, or all of these values that are at the base of so many of our food decisions. It's made for me. It's convenient. It's to go, because all of these are pre-portioned. Sorry, I'll just show you real quickly. Pre-portioned little snack packs. They have over 100 options, so it's highly customizable for your allergy preferences, your taste preferences. And I mentioned convenient. This box is designed, it's like a Netflix DVD. It comes in the mail slot. That's crazy, right? So I just mentioned that as an example that there's the food service examples where these are these highly tailored, made for me, are becoming core to who we are. And it's also happening in retail. And you see it now that it's not just food, but you can make your own jam box, online. You can customize your bicycle from the ground up. So this is not going anywhere. If anything, it's only going to become more the norm.
Well, and it's coming so quickly. Sweet Greens announced this week that they actually are not going to take cash in 10 of their locations, which is really incredible, which means you have to either show up with, Apple Pay or a credit card. But, they've just actually realized that slows down the customer experience, this exchange of cash. And I think these kind of upstart companies that are defining themselves in relationship to their customer are taking great kind of, you might call them risks, but you'd also just call them expressions of their personality as a company as a way of forging deeper connection and understanding. So we've been talking about customization, but one of the things in mission-driven branding, Sangita, is of course being able to articulate what your company stands for, and it needs to stand for something more than just selling a product and making a profit. It has to have some higher purpose or higher calling. It has to be believable. Sometimes companies set expectations that are very difficult, if not impossible, to deliver, on a regular basis. So, how should entrepreneurs think about defining a mission in a way that taps into these connectivity points that Sophie's talking about? And maybe you could talk a little bit about how you approach that in your class too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of really understanding what service, what will your consumers, what will they expect from you as a brand, and what services are you offering? So let's just start there. When I have worked with my clients in the past, they're always like, I want to be mission driven. And I'm like, okay, well, let's start with you and your purpose. Why did you start this company? What is the mission or purpose? What role is this company playing or this product playing in consumers' lives? And how will your product or service differentiate from other competitors? So I think that's a starting point. And I think one of the critical questions is, how will it be different? So what are the guiding set of core values that will separate your company from the other competitors that are out there, so that you're not creating another Me Too product, but that you're really building this brand and the product, and it's coming to life, having its own set of identity and values.
What would an example of a core value for a brand-driven business be? What would you describe those as?
Yeah, there could be innovation, could be a value that's like, we're going to continuously delight our consumers with innovative products. That could be a value. Another value could be something that's much more emotive, that we want to bring joy. All aspects of the experience that consumers have with our brand, from the packaging and how it's addressed or labeled to me, and how the product makes me feel. So some can be a little bit more tactical, and others can be a little bit more broader. That's where it gets a little bit harder in terms of bringing that to life. Other values could be more internal guiding values around innovation, collaboration, teamwork, being trustworthy, transparent. But it's really just a guiding set of principles of how the company is going to operate, and the values that it embodies across all aspects of the organization, from product development to communication to interacting with consumers. Everything needs to be consistent.
Is it important for those values to be sort of codified or expressed or written down, or is it okay for them just to be kind of wandering around in the entrepreneur's head and be channeled out into the world?
Yeah, one of the first things is to actually create a long list of values. So what are all of the values that you as a leader embody, or that you would like your team to embody? But create a master list, and it could be a very, very long list. And then I recommend whittling down to a set of 5 core values. And it could be anywhere between 3 to 7, but I think 5 is a really good goal to have. And then pressure test that with employees, with your stakeholders, and ask them, does this make sense? For the employees, it's really important that they understand every single value, that it's clear, it's understandable, that everyone can articulate it. But does it also go with the brand? If it's an established brand and you're now trying to codify values, it's helpful to speak with external stakeholders, to ask them, from what you know about this brand and what you expect of us, does it make sense that these are our values? What are the outliers, and what would you express as the values for the brand?
I want to
But I think,
stop you on that because that's such an important point. I used to teach a case in my MBA class about American Express. It's not a food company, but obviously a very big consumer-facing services company. And they did exactly what you said. They went out to their customers, and the customers said, "We don't feel that you're listening to us and you're responsive." So they decided to focus entirely on their externally facing employee group and improve their technology systems and their response times and their customer management interface. And they spent lots of time and money trying to operationalize that value of being responsive. But what happened, the campaign effectively failed. And what the reason was they didn't address that responsive issue internally inside their own culture. So what happened was when they finally went back and they asked the employees, why didn't this work? The employees said, well, our culture isn't responsive to us. Our HR group isn't responsive. It isn't, so they found this really interesting disconnect between a value which was articulated externally, relative to one that needed to be adopted. So from my learning, it's so important that, as you just mentioned, that these core values emanate from the core purpose of why do we exist, and the values are the how, we will do business.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, when we were at Plum, one of our initial values that we laid out was customer first, and the customer is always right. And so that meant that when a customer called in and complained about an experience, we were like so apologetic. We sent them replacement product. We would write notes. We would just really embody the fact that we made a mistake and that we inconvenienced this consumer. And, there were some definitely challenging trade-offs internally with wanting to make packaging changes that would affect the experience of the consumer, that the consumer had with our products. And, as a marketing leader or CEO, you really have to be the champion of the values and really identify champions internally, especially if you're in an environment where you're creating change and you're trying to instill values within an established organization. It's so important to have champions internally that are constantly reminding everyone of the values. I will also add that when I was at Method, we had very strong sustainability values around adhering to these strict guidelines. And within the brand world, whenever we wanted to design something new, if we didn't deliver on our core value of ensuring that we delivered against our sustainability guidelines, we could not launch in a new category or design that product. Even though it would have made so much money and it would have been kind of a no-brainer from a sales perspective, we really embrace and embody the values of sustainability. And so, again, I think codifying it within the organization is really important. Implementing it within processes, having checklists that say, does this meet our core values? Those are very simple steps, but sometimes are overlooked when we're trying to kind of instill new values.
So I was just going to say, so just to kind of frame this a little bit, so there's a design stage where you're really thinking about which values can I articulate and deliver that are going to connect with the kinds of consumer insights, changes, preferences, emotional desires that Sophie's written so beautifully about. And then you have to figure out how to operationalize those. It's not enough just to identify them, but you have to operationalize them.
Absolutely.
And in my own experience, like at companies like Republic of Tea and Odwalla and others, we also tried to choose values that created some kind of competitive advantage, meaning they differentiated us from other companies and what other companies were doing. What I find so interesting today is, as the natural foods movement, the organic foods movement has matured, and it used to be the world of the small kind of mission-driven entrepreneurial company. But over the last 10 years, so many small companies have been acquired by big companies. And so now you have these big companies that are comprised of lots of, small companies, smaller brands. And the process today, or the approach today, that the big companies have kind of learned is we need to leave those little companies alone and let them do what they do best, and not try to impose our institutional culture on them. We saw that with Stonyfield Farms. I think that was probably one of the very early examples of when it was acquired by Danone. They put the CEO, Gary Hirshberg, on their main, global board, which was interesting. We saw it go the other way at Kashi. When Kellogg's bought Kashi, they started to bring the people over from San Diego into Battle Creek. Is that right? Battle Creek? Yeah. And all of a sudden the culture went haywire. The company's performance started to, sort of deteriorate. And they realized that by integrating back into the corporate, the larger corporate culture, that they lost what was special. So there's a bit of magic to all of this, but I'm really keen to understand too. Maybe we'll come back to it, but maybe in just a few minutes, Sangita, think about sharing with us some of the types of things that people will learn and take away. Maybe give us a couple of examples of the, some of the projects and challenges in your course. But before we do that, Sophie, tell us about that third insight that you cover in Devoured.
Yeah, so the third core value that I identified is progress. And what I mean by that is that the United States is not, it's a relatively young country, and it's not in general one that's based in tradition. Our food culture and our culture in general has often been called unstable. And what it means is, in contrast to many other countries around the world where you have ways of eating, foods that you eat, and those are all passed down from one generation to the next. In the U.S., we are known for innovation. This as a core value, the fact that Plum Organics, or that any California-based or U.S.-based new food company could identify that as a core value is not surprising. But you read a lot about the difference in how many other countries perceive of that, and disruption is not necessarily a good thing. Instead, in the U.S., we are very forward-looking. We all have this inherent, often subconscious realization, or appreciation, I should say, for the idea that we can always do something better than we're doing it today. You can take something and continually, rapidly improve upon it. Technology is the way to do that often. That's sort of core to who we are. So with food, this means all kinds of things. We seek novelty. As I mentioned, instead of sort of being, okay, I'm going to eat what my mother ate and my grandmother ate, it's a tabula rasa often, and that can leave us a little bit out on a limb sometimes, sort of flailing, and is coffee healthy, is it not healthy, etc. Pick your nutrition headline. But it also means that we're very open-minded, and this is the sort of silver lining, or I should first say the less fantastic part about that is that it leaves us susceptible to a lot of stunts. So I describe in the book stunt foods, and these are, for example, Doritos Locos Tacos. That's the neon orange hybrid of Dorito and taco, that beef taco, that Taco Bell sold in record-breaking numbers.
Is that food?
That is a philosophical debate in itself.
Tune in next time.
The color would indicate otherwise, but I have eaten it. I'm still alive. But in any case, it's just one of this sort of species of mashup foods. You've seen waffle taco, you've seen bacon wrapped pizza. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Recently, there was the mac and Cheetos, Cheetos stuffed with macaroni and cheese. I think it's Burger King. But the point is that this penchant for new and interesting and the untried. It's this kind of pioneering spirit, right? And again, it's not necessarily that we realize it, but it does make us very curious, endlessly open to sort of adding to our experiential resume, is a term actually used by Harvard Business School folks to describe, again, why in the U.S. in particular, they say that they've observed it in other cultures, but it's especially pronounced in the U.S. It's this desire to sort of live a full life. And Taco Bell actually, through Doritos Locos Tacos, tapped into that, whether they knew it explicitly, and their tagline was "Live Más." It was this idea that by eating a DLT, you are living a fuller life. So that's the kind of murky side of it, is in terms of sort of the things that we, are they food? We probably don't really want to be eating those things in record-breaking numbers. But from a food entrepreneur standpoint, what it means is that, you mentioned Crave jerky. Were we all eating this much jerky like 3 years ago? I don't think so. Kind Bar. People have talked about the Kind Bar invasion, and what it means is just that we're really willing to fold into our larger definition of American food a wide range of things that we may not even know exist now. And that leaves, I think, a tremendous opportunity.
Well, another term that fits nicely with progress is this notion of the experience economy. And we see, frequently people who have the means certainly use their, restaurant discovery as a, almost like an accomplishment. It becomes a badge of honor. And I see, almost like the desire for people who might, consider themselves to be extreme foodies, this opportunity to have, experienced something, and then that in turns kind of defines who they are. So it becomes very interesting. So the brand, the brand of Noma and what it stands for, if I go eat at Noma, or if I go eat at the French Laundry, or if I go have the new Impossible Foods burger at Momofuku, in New York this week, this becomes a way of defining who I am. So this whole issue of identity really is at the heart of this mission-driven kind of brand building and strategy. So it was very interesting, Sangita, maybe you can comment on this, but it was interesting to me that Impossible Foods decided to introduce its burger at Momofuku with David Chang, this very famous chef, in this, kind of sophisticated environment. And then simultaneously, Beyond Meat introduced its burger into Whole Foods. Both of them were done in almost stunt-like orchestration, and there are, I think the last time I read, there are over 18,000 food blogs, and the orchestration that a marketing leader has to kind of conceive and execute is extraordinary to try to break through the noise, in the system. So how do you, how do you think about that whole world of how does a small company, maybe without all the resources of its competitors, find a voice and space in this really, really crowded and noisy food universe?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And if anyone has any answers, please share. I think it really goes back to your mission. And if you look at Impossible, they have an incredibly lofty mission, which is to take on the meat industry. And they don't want to be viewed as an alternative burger. They want meat lovers to try their burger and fall in love with it, and ensure that the Impossible Burger will be the choice, the number one choice for meat lovers. And so I think, thinking about what your mission is, and then thinking about, okay, well, what's the best way to get to drive consumers down along that journey? Because if they just went straight to a grocery store or try to replace every meat burger with the Impossible Burger, there would be very, very low adoption. So I think for them, thinking about, okay, well, how can we create word of mouth? Who are the influencers? And taking a restaurant approach is really smart for their perspective, because chefs are influencers. And if they're willing to use this ingredient to replace their red meat, then that means that it's good enough for everyone else. And so I think, if you're a small company and you have limited resources, having a very deep understanding of who your consumer is and how you can reach them across their life, across all aspects of their life. It's not just about when they eat, but it's about where are they? What are they? Do they exercise? If so, where do they exercise? What do they do for fun? Do they work or do they not? But what are all of the places? Where are all the places that I could reach this consumer? And in many cases, digital is quite easy and it's very cost effective, especially if you're a small company. But I actually think partnerships is another invaluable way to reach out to your target consumer, and aligning yourself with a ecosystem of brands who share the same set of values. And this is a topic that we'll go deep on in my course, but has been an effective strategy that I've found for both a Plum and Method. When you have limited resources, if you can come together with a group of other like-minded brands and work together to promote your product and also promote your mission, you'll be surprised by how much more impact and kind of the collective reach that you can have versus trying to do it on your own.
In essence, what you're saying is, just to unpack that a little bit, because I think that's such an interesting strategy. You, as a small company, have to convince somebody that's probably more established than you are and more visible that you are a worthy companion or complement to what they do. That clearly Impossible Foods made David Chang fall in love with the burger enough that he would risk his brand reputation to introduce something new. Now, we don't know what the incentives were. Hopefully they were, true and authentic. I would imagine David would have made sure that, this is something he really does love and care about, because his integrity is his most valuable asset. So, this strategy, and you mentioned it, Method did it beautifully, because Method came sort of out of nowhere and coincided with Target's own missionary kind of evolution to represent design in everything they did. So, and similarly, my experience with Republic of Tea back in the early 1990s was very much that for Whole Foods, because we were the kind of penultimate tea brand that expressed aesthetic beauty, kind of mindful consciousness, and this natural gourmet positioning that was what Whole Foods aspired to. Mm-hmm. So there's this really interesting aspirational dimension of, mission driven.
Absolutely. And I would add that, at Plum, we said, okay, if we try to just connect with the consumer on shelf, we're going to lose, because there are so many other brands who are trying to connect with the shopper during their 3 seconds in that aisle. And so we really thought out of the box and said, okay, well, what's the lifestyle of our mom? What is she wearing? What diaper bag is she using? What stroller is she using? Where does she exercise? And one of the ways that we were able to break through the clutter was to show up in unexpected places. So we sampled at Stroller Strides, which is, where mom and baby goes to exercise with friends. We partnered with apparel companies and accessory companies, which was very unexpected for a food brand to do that. But it was actually quite successful, because what happens is you get more share of their attention, because you are the only food brand. So when a mom is going to exercise and she sees Plum Organics, and it's the only brand that she's seeing there, she has a little bit more time to learn about the brand and to interact with it. So I can't stress the importance of partnerships and really taking a broader 360 approach of the consumer's lifestyle, to think about creative ways to connect with that consumer that's not just through traditional marketing vehicles.
So Sangita, are you, during your I'm sorry, I'm just going to put my camera back on here. Are you going to lead people through a process to help them define their vision and values and their mission statement and express that? Are you going to help people figure out how to pick strategies and test strategies that might help them operationalize those values. Tell us just, in a minute or two, tell us a little bit about what people will take away from your class. What will they be able to do as a result of spending 6 weeks with you online in Mission Driven on the Food Business School?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key takeaway is to really understand to have a deeper understanding of mission driven. What does it mean to be a mission driven brand, and how you can apply that to everything you do. And so over the course of the 5 to 6 weeks, we will do an overview of mission driven, go through a variety of different examples. And I should also preface this with the fact that students will be able to either work with other learners on their business plans, or work independently on their own brand or a new concept. And so over the course of the 6 weeks, we'll walk you through how to define your own mission, your values, your purpose, and then how that gets translated, understanding consumer insights and understanding how you can draw the connection between your values and your positioning with the core insight and the unmet need that you're delivering against. We will go through a comprehensive branding exercise where you develop your core brand positioning, values, pillars, kind of all aspects of brand positioning. We'll touch on pricing strategy. We'll do competitive landscape exercises so you can understand, okay, is my brand positioning very clear? Is it crystal clear how I am differentiating my brand and product from the other competitors in the space? And then we'll cover a variety of other topics, such as, culture and how you can embrace and embody and instill your core values within the culture, because I feel like inside out marketing is one of the most important steps to really codifying values for a company. We'll do a deep dive in marketing and really understanding how to navigate the world of social media, especially if you're a small brand, and leveraging, tactics such as influencer marketing, partnerships, grassroots. And then kind of the last class, we cover off on a variety of different things, such as kind of the ethics of marketing, GMO, non-GMO, labeling, and, really leading with integrity, especially during tough times when there may be PR issues or food safety issues, and how your values can really be your guiding compass to help you resolve these issues.
Fantastic. It sounds very pragmatic and practical, but also very thoughtful and inspiring. I can't wait to be involved in it again.
Thank you.
We're so lucky to have you and someone of your talent and experience leading that class. And Sophie, this book is awesome. So Devoured, if you're a early stage, if you've got an early stage food company, or even if you're in charge of like $1 billion food company, this is really an important book, because the language that we use as leaders and as communicators is just critical. And Sophie really has a gift for words, and she has so many wonderful kind of memorable hooks in this book. I'll hold it up just a little bit higher. So I think that, it's very useful. So Sophie, thank you so much for being with us today. And Sangita, thank you. And I will show you all our listeners the final kind of offer here, that if you want to order Sophie's book from Devoured, you can do that, and we will send all participants an email about that. And then you can go to our website and see our upcoming classes. We've got a lot of great classes this fall. Eat, Think, Design is going to be our first design thinking for food course, taught by Jaspal Sandhu. And we're going to be offering our course in the Essentials of Nutrition and Sustainability with Bruce German from UC Davis for the first time as well. So it's a very exciting fall. Please go to our website and check that out. And then also, if you do sign up for a course, and again, if you do that before August 29th for Sangitas, you get a really nice incentive to do that. But use this code FBS15, and you get another additional 15% off. We're really trying to build our community of learners. Our goal is to have a massive impact in the food industry to really equip people to be successful, respected, and influential leaders who are doing well and doing good. So thanks very much for your attention today, and we'll see you at our next FoodBiz Plus next month. Thank you.